Call your banker today if you haven't already. Hi, my name is Jim Hart. I am an actual lawyer, and today is the state of the stimulus for April 22nd, 2020. So I know there's a lot of places where you can get your news online, especially through YouTube, and there's a lot of people out there talking about stuff on YouTube, but I am an actual lawyer and I talk about actual legal stuff on my channel. And today I want to talk to you about the legal stuff that happened late last night. So in case you were sleeping under a rock and don't know what's going on, we've been going through some stimulus bills here in the past several weeks and months, and last night, late yesterday afternoon, the Senate passed a $484 billion stimulus package that is being called Stimulus 3.5. Now, this bill doesn't introduce any new programs, but what it does do is it adds additional funding for the CARES Act that was passed back in the end of March. And I know that seems like years ago, but it was only like 3 weeks. Is that right? So what this bill does is it adds additional funding. The legal term, because I'm a lawyer, is it appropriates additional funds for programs we have intimately come to know and love, such as the Payroll Protection Program, which incidentally ran out of money last week. So here's an overall view of what happened. Number one, $320 billion was allocated to the Payroll Protection Program. And of that amount, $60 million needs to be set aside for community-based banks, rural banks, and smaller banks that are basically in underfunded areas in rural communities. An additional $60 billion has been set aside for economic injury disaster loans. Of that $60 billion, $10 billion must be allocated to grant money. An additional $25 billion was set aside for coronavirus aid and testing, which is much needed right now. And an additional $75 billion was set aside for hospitals. All right, so here's the timeline on this program and when you can expect to be able to get some of this money under the PPP program or under the Small Business Administration Disaster Loan Program. The Senate passed the bill yesterday. It is expected to go to the House of Representatives, who has to pass it before it can go to the president. They're expected to do that tomorrow on Thursday, and then is expected to go to the president's desk on Friday, and he is expected to sign this bill. So a big question that has come up recently is, should you even take the PPP loan money? And I talked about this in a video yesterday. Experts like Dave Ramsey are telling people, no, you should not take this money. I disagree with that advice, and there are a couple reasons why. Number one, the Treasury Secretary has said that he expects this is going to be the last round of funding for businesses. So if you are on the brink and maybe you're just a couple months away from losing your business in terms of cash in the bank, then you definitely need to be applying for these programs if you haven't already. Number two, some people have said, well, let's take a wait and see approach. Let's see, give it a couple months, let's see if you still need the money, and then you can apply then. Well, that's not gonna work because the first round of funding that was $349 billion, they ran out of that in like 2.5 weeks. We expected that was gonna go until June, and it didn't. So this round of funding, which is about $320 billion, is, I expect this money is gonna be gone by the first week in May, if not sooner. So if you need it, you need to apply. And if you want to hold on to it in your bank account and then just pay it back, that's fine. But you definitely need to apply. So you need to be in touch with your banker. And really, if you're a business that doesn't need the money, if you have more than enough funds, if you're still operating pretty smoothly, if you've got a lot of remote workers or had a lot of remote workers before this all started and you still have a lot of remote workers, and you just don't need the cash, then there is no reason for you to take the money. You really don't need it. But if you are a brick and mortar business who relies on people coming into your store or your business, or you rely on foot traffic through or seeing patients or things like that. In my video yesterday, I talked about my daughter's orthodontist and the employees he has. One thing I didn't mention is all the restaurants that are at risk of going under. I heard a statistic that up to 75% of small restaurants and local restaurants could go under as a result of this pandemic. And that is a horrible, frightening thought. There's so many great places to eat where I live, and I'm sure where many of you live as well, and I would hate to see them go under. So do what you can to support your local businesses. Order takeout, buy gift cards, do whatever you can to support these places because they need our help now more than ever. And these are the types of businesses that need to take the PPP loans because they need to make sure they can still employ their staff and they can actually stay in business for the long haul. The last thing I want to touch on today is the fact that you should be expecting, even though we may not see any additional funding for businesses, you should definitely be expecting a round 4 of the stimulus package that's going to help individuals. A round 4 could include things like funding for state and local governments, which desperately need the help right now, rental assistance, election integrity, the Postal Service. I also expect there's going to be funding requests for expanded testing of the coronavirus so that we can actually get this whole thing under control, and testing seems to me, from everything I've read, to be at the cornerstone of what we need to get this under control. If you want to hear more about what's going on with the stimulus bill, check out my video from yesterday on why I think you should take PPP loan funds and why I disagree with Dave Ramsey. It's a good one. We'll see you next video. Later, folks.